Hello class, it's V. Namaste to you. It is 8/8 as the filming of this video, so therefore I'm going to do two videos today. One is going to be the video we're watching right now about energy physics in regards to portals. Occulted physics and portals and the different kinds of portals that exist. The other video will be uploaded shortly after, and it'll be an exercise on meditation for manifestation. So if you'd like to watch that, stay tuned, maybe subscribe to the channel. Anyhow, what are portals? Well, there's different kinds of portals. So we'll begin with the basic ones that we're all familiar with in science fiction. You know, the portal gun from Valve kind of portals, the space-time portals, you know. Now, these are not only possible, but they've been made in, you know, your illegal, you know, USAP, unacknowledged military, okay? Humans on this planet have had this technology occulted for years, and they don't use them for, I should say, good purposes. Anyhow, how would a teleportation portal of space and time work? Well, if we take our circuit from how infinite energy devices work, and we take this kind of, you know, electromagnetic energy system, something that exists in over unity or over resonance, which means that we can theoretically, depending on the dimensions of such a circuit, change, you know, how much energy is output. So for example, as some inventors who, you know, history have made, like, you know, Thomas Beeren, just insert clip.
Any dipole is a broken symmetry in the furious exchange with a vacuum. It's a broken three-dimensional symmetry. What does this mean? Cutting through all the words and getting down to country boy language. It means that nature does not insist on conserving energy in three dimensions. We do, because we have a three-dimensional mind. We like to think in terms of space because observation itself destroys time, and what we look at is spatial. So we like to think the world is made of space, not space-time. However, nature loves to work in four dimensions. Her fundamental law is conservation of energy must apply in four dimensions. Now, you're not going to beat that one, so never think about that. But there is no law of nature that requires you to come in and say, also it must apply simultaneously in three dimensions. If we build some gadget that makes it apply in three dimensions, we apply an extra constraint on what nature will give us. Turning that around, we go around building things that insist on having this three-dimensional exchange of energy. We got to put it in three dimensions for whatever we get out and lose some in the middle. So we got a terrible situation all the way. It's called entropic engineering. We always got entropy beating us to death. Never go over unity. Forget it. Lose a lot. We talk about, you know, efficiencies at 30% and so forth for our power systems when we talk about burning the coal and all that stuff. But nature doesn't require you to do that. All you have to do is break a little bit of this three-symmetry set of chains where you have tied her feet to the floor. Once you break the flow in three dimensions, you no longer have to conserve energy in three dimensions. The basic conservation of energy is an inflow from four dimensions, outflow in three dimensions. From the fourth dimension, converted and flowed out into three. And that one is free. Giant negentropy is free. Nature will start reorganizing a goodly percentage of the whole vacuum for you, spreading at the speed of light, and will continue it as long as you leave the dipole alone. The original charges and dipoles in the original matter of the universe have been putting out energy and reorganizing the vacuum for 15 billion years. Today we're said we can't engineer negentropy when negentropy is the easiest thing in the world to engineer, whereas entropy is the hard way to do it, and that's the way we all do it. The bottom
You know, you can have systems that output, you know, X amount of excess energy that can be, you know, utilized by an electronic load. And for those of you that aren't, you know, electrical engineers, since this is supposed to be very basic information, a load is something like a light bulb. You know, we have power, and then there's something in the circuit that is pulling this power away. We call that a load. Like lifting a load of weight with like a forklift. Similar concept. It's something that requires force. So, the electronics of this is, well, space, time, and the material field. Why things are material, remember this diagram. These are all connected, okay? Because we live in a universe that's stemmed out of a singularity. So therefore, we are all familiar in our modern academics that are accepted and taught to you, not occulted, that the electric field and the magnetic field are tied together at 90 degrees. Really hard to hide that one because, you know, a propagation in one field will affect the other field at 90 degrees. And this is why we have things such as the right-hand rule. When there's current flowing in a wire, whether it be charging your phone or, you know, powering a light bulb, there's a magnetic wave that spins off of that current field passing through that copper wire. Now, if we were to use our, you know, occulted electrodynamics, that we can, you know, create a system of perpetual motion. We're not going to address how that's possible. We've already done that. Then you can understand that the same thing I said can be used to distort gravity. Okay, well, when that is done, we'll make a video addressing how UFOs can be built in depth. But essentially, you'll want to distort the magnitude of the magnetic field waves coming off of these wires in this concentric circuit to a point where you can affect the gravitational, you know, inertial field around you. What do I mean by that? Well, what makes something have gravity, okay? Now, in mainstream physics today, look, we humans have figured this problem out back in the 1950s, okay? Any physicist today tackling universal quantum gravitation simply, unfortunately, is ignorant, lied to, or they don't know better. They don't. Inertia of your, you know, objects, why things have gravity, why things have a, you know, maintained force of motion, okay? This is a phenomena which we call inertia. I'll probably post the Google definition here for it. What that really is in our model of quantum mechanics, we have actually a gaping problem. And this is accepted in university. And if you have a good, you know, physics professor when you're going through university, they'll say something along the lines as, you know, the physics professor that taught me said, is our model of, you know, quantum mechanics is extremely broken. If you look into our, you know, measurements of the electron moving around the, you know, shell of an atom, you'll notice that we measure the electron moving at speeds faster than the speed of light. That should scare you because, you know, all of modern physics is taught that, you know, the speed of light can never be surpassed. Well, spoiler alert, that's a lie. We've had the physics, you know, to essentially do things faster than the speed of light. Now, the speed of light is a constant in the sense that, you know, energetically, in this medium of space and time, that's the fastest something within this medium that's unaltered can move, because it's the fastest energy propagation, okay, through the space. But if you were to alter the fabric of space and time, you can move faster, okay? The electron thing in the orbit of the atoms has more to do with our quantum mechanics models that we have today. So if you can make something like a UFO that distorts the inertia, why objects have inertia, by the way. So like, for example, what is inertia? If I drop this lens cap, it falls due to the gravitational, you know, pull of attraction between this cap and the earth. They move together, okay? Now, when I say inertia, this thing, as soon as I let go of it, is going to fall until it hits my hand, okay? It has a moment of inertia, i.e. all of the atoms that make up this cap are moving together, and they're going to keep moving. This is the, you know, phenomena of inertia, until we interpose another force to cancel this inertia due to another acceleration acting on it. The acceleration that is my hand staying still, the force of acceleration traveling up this and getting it to stop and halt in my hand. Now, when I talk about inertia, why that actually is because our universe is a holographic manifested conscious universe, and essentially all these electrons that are spinning faster than the speed of light around the atoms within this cap. This is what is causing your inertia. The fact that these electrons are moving so fast around these atoms, okay? This kind of atom structure that we're talking about is densely sitting in the physical plane of reality. The reason this cap is a physical cap is because it's made of electrons and atoms, and the reason those electrons and atoms are what we perceive as dense physical solid all the way through is because these electrons are moving very fast. It's a gyro, it's a gyroscope. It's you know, it's creating a spin, okay, inside of space and time. And if you were to imagine this as, like, you know, the electron shell around an atom, the electrons are moving super fast around this atom. It's creating a gyroscope, okay? It's creating its own moment of inertia inside each atom. Now, when we have, why can then the, you know, you have something that goes 0G? When you have an electric field and a magnetic field moving at such an over-unity resonance, such a magnitude, the magnetic waves curling off of that infinite energy circuit can begin to affect the scalar waves that exist in between the outer electron and the neutron of the atom. Okay? This will actually begin to slow the electron's speed, or alter the speed, I should say, or spin to be coherent. Let me put it that way. So when all these electrons in here are rotating about these atoms in every which way, they all have their own moments of inertia, and largely they cancel out to make a stationary object, okay? That is affected by gravity, because all atoms everywhere, unless we affect them, are going to have, you know, these random moments of inertia because they exist in the physical plane of reality. So when we introduce a magnetic vortex compressed, or a very, you know, high energy magnetic wave that exists at a certain resonant frequency, between the outside electrons and the, you know, nucleus of an atom exists a scalar electromagnetic wave. And when we are sending these, you know, magnetic waves in, we're affecting all of them within the 0 point, you know, magnetic vortex object or circuit. All of these waves are resonantly compressing in the center, okay? These things, if you get them to high enough, what would be an electrical voltage going through these wires, or a high enough current in lower voltage and vice versa, you can then begin to push out very high magnitude magnetic waves, okay? And these things, the electric waves and the magnetic waves, have a scalar component to them. We'll have to have a video later on what scalar electromagnetics is, because to dive into that might make this video too long. But I'm trying to keep it relatively short here because we're trying to talk about portals, not, you know, the base layer of reality. But point is, once you begin to influence and coherently influence all of the electron shells that sit in an object within that circuit, you can begin to affect all of their spins together. So if the spins in this object, the one I'm holding, are incoherent, they all kind of cancel out to zero, it sits in a physical manifested form. Now if we were to affect all of the electron shells, all of the electrons around all the atoms within this object, we could get it to coherently phase shift into a different energy bandwidth of reality, a bandwidth in which electrons around the shell of this atom, of these atoms that make this physical thing, would move in a way that it wouldn't be zero. We could then, it would be changing its inertia. The reason this has inertia would be to say that all of the electron orbits cancel out, all the rotations and spins of these electrons that are creating all these little gyroscopes in here are moving in such a way where they cancel out and equal zero. Therefore, it exists in the physical band of reality. Now, if we were to affect all of those electron spins together with a very large magnetic driving wave, we could coherently gain a uniform kind of change in how the electrons, the gyroscopes of the atoms, the reason the atoms have inertia and exist in the physical plane of reality, move. Therefore, if we were to do that, the sitting in physical plane of reality, if we were to do it enough, we could shift it out of the physical plane of reality into the astral plane of reality, the plane of light or conscious thought. But if we were to do it at a lower energy magnitude, we could simply mass cancel it. I.e., if we were to do that, a mass canceling kind of energy bandwidth, in which all of the spins of the gyroscopes of electrons in here were to become coherent, but not into a energy magnitude in which it phase shifted out of reality, it would become invisible. It would become like an object outside of this dimension of reality. It would just be the thought form of this object. Instead, if we were to keep the energy density a little bit lower, the coherent resonant spin rate of all these gyroscopes at a different kind of magnitude, I would let go of this and it would just sit there in space and time, because it would have no, inertia to it. It would still be a physical object. We could still touch it, but it would be like I could, tap it and it would look like it would be, floating on the International Space Station, because the gyroscope's causing a moment of inertia that allows for the gravitational force to take effect. The gravitational force wouldn't be taking effect anymore because there'd be no gyroscopic inertia of the electrons for it to act on. That's kind of complicated, so I know it took a while. I'm going to have to cut that up a bit. But, so that's what a 0G engine could do. Something that goes zero gravity. Now, we have to take that concept and now apply it to portals. So, if we understand that all these, atoms, even the atoms that make up the air around you, all of this universe is manifested, you could say, out of quantum fields or atoms, but the point is, atoms are formed from these quantum fields. Okay, so when we want to make a portal, like in, the video game Portal, or we want to have a space-time portal that we could walk through and then, appear somewhere else on the planet, in the universe, what we would do is we'd take a system like of these electromagnetic field, emitters, and we'd make a large concentric object, like a Stargate, if you wanted to, like from the movie Stargate. But and then what we would do is we would have to electromagnetically control all of these, wave emitters to get them to output a certain magnitude. Okay, it would be most easy to have it interface with the conscious layer of reality, and the reason for that I will explain in a second. But essentially, once we affect these electromagnetic waves, ignoring the effects of the atoms on the air molecules, because we're, just compressing a large set of electromagnetic energy, we can eventually get to a point where we're altering the other fields. So for example, the Higgs inertial field, or the quantum field that manifests these atoms, that's one kind of field. Now there's other kinds of fields too. This Higgs inertial field also is tied to the conscious field. What does the conscious field represent in our material universe? It represents time, actually, because time itself is observation. Observation itself is time.
It means that nature does not insist on conserving energy in 3 dimensions. We do, because we have a 3-dimensional mind. We like to think in terms of space, because observation itself destroys time, and what we look at is spatial. So we like to think the world is made of space, not space-time.
You can't have one without the other. Observation destroys time, and vice versa. So, what does that mean? It means that time in the physical manifested universe can only be had because we can perceive it. We can become aware of it. Now, that's why consciousness can exist outside of time. That's why time is a construct. And that's why time is like the physical manifested form of consciousness in this reality. So, if we want to have a portal that traverses space and time, then we would have to electromagnetically affect the E&M fields at high enough a magnitude to where these waves that are colliding in the center begin to affect the other fields attached to it, i.e. the fields of consciousness and space and time. So once you do that, you can literally create like an etched electromagnetic tear through the space-time fields that are connected to electromagnetism, and you could then combine, because all these things are waves, all these things are a set of frequencies. If you knew the point in space and time that you wanted to go to, you would then know the subsequent frequency of that particleized bit at that location. You could do some very complicated math to figure it out, but point is, once this portal is open, this energy portal is open, and you want it to go somewhere, you would need to access the fact that this is a holographic material universe. Each finite particle, each 0-point particle in this manifested universe, each Planck length particle, that is the 0-point bit, check Occulted lecture 1 for that information, you could figure out the specific frequency, the unique discrete frequency of a certain part of space and time, and you could then resonantly make this portal vibrate at the frequency of this point, and you could open a tear in space and time, walk through it, and then show up at that point. Or more, I guess that's one way to do it, more specifically, creating this field would then open up this energetic toroid at that point in space and time, and you just go through it like a wormhole, but it's an energetic wormhole, and this has been done. So that's like the basic idea. Well, man, I've already talked so much. Whew. So what is then a different kind of portal? We'll only touch on this one today since it is Lion's Gate, because that took way longer than I wanted it to explain how you would make a normal portal gun. But what is a conscious portal? Well, again, referencing Occulted Lecture 2, since all of space and time is manifested out of these quantum fields, and one of these fields is a conscious field, that means that the Earth, every planet, is a manifested conscious body, just as you are a manifested conscious body. I'll make a video in the future explaining celestial conscious bodies and that sort of thing. But so everything is a manifested conscious body, technically. Okay? When we talk about portals, since space and time is connected to, you know, electromagnetism, which is connected to, you know, the conscious quantum field, you know, all these things. Since all of these fields that make up our universe are connected together, the conscious field being the background layer, why the background, that diagram, is also the center, then you should understand that the material plane of reality, you know, space, time, the solar system, is actually really a, as they say, a galactic stage that is the play of life. We'll have more videos on that too, you know, the divine comedy of life, and, you know, making the best of it and finding happiness. We'll make videos on that too, and we'll put them in the spiritual playlist, but we're just talking about physics right now. So this universe is a manifested set of fields. We live in the physical part of it, okay? But our consciousness exists outside of that. It interfaces with the physical part, as above, so below, and as below, so above. So, as below, so above, when space and time is moving and expanding and accelerating outward, it's because more and more of this universe is getting printed. You can check the bimodal bifurcation diagram video for information on that. But essentially, the Earth and every, you know, planet, every star, everything moves through different sections of space and time. Okay? Now, different sections of space and time that are manifest have different kind of energy spectra that lie in the background consciously. So, for those of you that are astrologically in the know, you know that we've been dawning on the age of Aquarius. What does that mean? Well, again, Occulted Lecture 2, but the reason astrology is bullshit is because since, you know, the manifested universe is the stage at which conscious reality plays out on, depending on where the Earth is located and where the sun and the moon is located, some very smart people, you know, thousands of years ago figured this out because they're more connected to the conscious realm at that point in time, just as we're about to begin. That's why everyone's awakening right now. But the planet Earth itself is a conscious body with conscious individuals on it, and therefore the sun is a conscious entity. It represents something consciously, empathetically, and so is the moon and all these other things. So if we calculate their alignments, yeah, that means stuff astronomically, you know, geometrically, you know, we can see things like eclipses, but these things have conscious spiritual meanings because they're literally moving through a manifested field of consciousness that extends through the entire universe, because it's an infinite awake being and it's constantly growing. So, is the manifested universe finite? No, technically not. It's always growing, but does that mean that there's like an end to it? There might be an end to the physical manifested universe, but you would just end up in a different energy bandwidth layer of it. Yeah, it's kind of a mind fuck, so we'll not dive into that right now. So, what's a conscious portal? Well, currently we're at 8-8, which is the biggest consciousness portal, quite frankly, that this planet goes through in our modern time. And if you understood that, you know, all these planets are conscious bodies, and when they move through space and time, they go through different literal sections of manifested conscious background vibrational frequency, some with higher frequencies, some with lower frequencies. When this planet and solar system moves through lower frequency times, you'll notice a lot more violent behavior, a lot more, you know, lower frequency fear-based behavior. Now, when it goes through transitions out of a low, you know, period of conscious vibrational background frequency to a higher one, this transitional period will also cause lots of disruption because we're altering the frequency with we're bombarding low frequency behavior with lots of high frequency behavior, and the two don't like each other and they create a lot of disharmonic clashes. But eventually they'll, you know, sync together and they'll begin vibrating in a new harmonic rate. So we're dawning on the age of Aquarius, which is a higher vibrational frequency, and that's why everyone on the planet is awakening right now, because space and time is moving through a section where everyone can be more enlightened. Because the manifested physical universe is allowing us to be. Now you can be highly enlightened without it, but trust me, it's a lot easier if, because as above, so below, it's a lot easier to become enlightened if the physical manifested, part of Earth is moving through a place in space and time that's allowing you to do so. The two are connected, they're co-linked, because as above, so below. So you can be in a low vibrational conscious energy part of space and time 100 years ago and still be very enlightened. You can be, but it might be harder to do so. And vice versa now, since we're going into an enlightened period, which is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, you can be, in a low vibrational state, experiencing hatred, fear, all these kinds of emotions. But it might be harder to do so. It might be easier to be in alignment with a higher vibration because you're moving through a part of space and time that exists at a higher vibrational conscious rate. Both are possible. So that's what a conscious portal is. So we say it's a conscious portal because astronomically right now, as of 8/8/2023, the star Sirius is perfectly in alignment with Orion's belt and the pyramids of Giza on Egypt. And if you understand that, physical manifested material reality is also has a conscious significance, you'd understand that the pyramids around this planet have a lot more significance than just geometric structures. So, Lionsgate is because it's called Lionsgate because this short period of time where all these astral bodies are aligned is a gateway. It's a consciousness gateway. What does that mean? It means if you walk through this gateway, it'll change your life, how it plays out physically in time. For better or worse, it largely depends on what you're doing around the time before the gate occurs, the time during the gate, and the time immediately after. But immediately after is, it's always your decision. Gates are important, but you're still the owner and controller of your life. So, even if you're not doing something that you want to do during a gate, doesn't mean it will, not affect you. What a gate simply means is they're like amplifiers. They're like a big transformer. When we're going through Lionsgate today, it is because what you're doing today consciously, physically, in your manifested reality is going to have a very big effect on how your future goes. Now, every point in time is just as important as every other point, but some points in time, quite literally, provide for more luck. Yes, luck is a real thing, because, again, if you understand that Schrodinger's wave equation is true and that we can never truly predict the future is always undetermined. There are, however, periods of time, consciously, that we'll move through in space and time, where the future probability might turn more in your favor because of what you're doing. So, happy Lionsgate, everyone. That's what a conscious portal is it's a small segment of space and time where once you pass through it, it will consciously affect how your life plays out. So we call it a portal because it's like walking through a doorway, So I hope you walk through your Lionsgate with hope and, good intentions for the future that you can manifest. Because manifestation is not only, derived and driven by this universe that we live in, but it's also just equally derived by you, as above, so below. So, if you'd like some help on how to essentially, you know, manifest. If you'd like some tips on manifesting, or if you never practiced a manifestation sort of thing before, stay tuned, maybe subscribe. I'm going to post a video shortly that's talking about how manifestation and a manifestation meditation. So yeah, peace. Have a good one.